Power for all. Diesel engine evolution for the new generation. Daihatsu Diesel, in pursuit of infinite possibilities. This video shows the proper maintenance procedures for the model DE18. It mainly deals with the cylinder head, fuel oil injection pump, pistons and connecting rods, and main bearing shell. Some maintenance procedures are slightly different from the instruction manual, so please use this as your reference. First, we will explain how to inspect and maintain the cylinder head. Prepare all necessary tools for the dismantling process. Before dismantling the cylinder head, set the governor handle to stop. Then turn off the main valve of the air tank. If multiple units are installed, turn off the engine inlet valve. Close the valves for the water cooling system, the fuel oil system, and the lube oil system. Then drain the cooling water from the engine. Remove the indicator valve cover on the cylinder head and then open the indicator valve. Remove the cylinder head cover. Remove the indicator valve. Remove the cooling water outlet flange, located on the upper part of the cylinder head. Remove the exhaust gas thermometer. Remove the high-pressure fuel block and the inlet connector. Remove the tightening nut of the nozzle holder. Pull out the fuel oil injection valve using the nozzle holder extracting tool. Be careful not to leave any circular packing behind in the cylinder head. After removing the high-pressure fuel oil block and the fuel oil injection valve, be careful to replace the covers on both the fuel oil injection pump coupling and the insertion part of the cylinder head to prevent foreign matter from entering. Remove the exhaust pipe mounting bolt and other pipes around the cylinder head. Loosen the rocker arm shaft holder tightening nut and remove the rocker arm shaft assembly. Make the identification marks IE and draw out the intake and exhaust valve T-yokes and the push rods. Simultaneously remove the 4 cylinder head tightening nuts using the hydraulic jack. Remove the cylinder head bolt caps. Align the jack stand notches so that the jack stand does not interfere with the adjacent cylinder head. Attach the hydraulic jack on the head bolt. Connect the hydraulic pump, terminal 4T, and hydraulic jack with the high-pressure hose. Turn the hydraulic piston of the jack into the hydraulic cylinder as far as it will go. Mount the jack onto the cylinder head bolt securely, then back it up 1 turn. Raise the oil pressure to the prescribed oil pressure level. Loosen the nut. Confirm the oil pressure at which the nuts start turning and check that the cylinder head bolts have been tightened securely. Lower the oil pressure slowly with the pump release valve. Before removing the high-pressure hose, tighten the hydraulic jack once to discharge the oil. Remove the hydraulic jack. Jack stand joint bolt and nut. Remove the starting valve piping. Secure the cylinder head lifting tool to the stud bolt for retaining the nozzle holder on the top of the head, and lift the cylinder head using a chain block and wire rope. If the cylinder head is dropped while it is being lifted, serious accidents can occur. To lift it, use the specified lifting tool and strictly follow the standards for the use of wire rope. Slowly lift the cylinder head, taking care not to damage the threads of the cylinder head bolt. Be careful that cooling water in the head does not enter the cylinder. Remove the 1 and 2 cylinder head gaskets and cover the cylinder head with a clean cloth or tape to prevent the entry of foreign matter into the cylinder liner, intake duct, and other fluid passages. When positioning the removed cylinder head, take care not to damage its lower surface. Remove the cylinder head lifting tool. Remove the starting valve. To avoid reassembly errors, put intake and exhaust valve identification marks and cylinder numbers on the valve tops and heads before disassembly. Using the special tool, remove the 4 intake and exhaust valves simultaneously. Fit the base to the stud bolt for the retaining nozzle holder on the top surface of the cylinder head. Fit the plate onto the valve rotator bodies and screw the special bolt into the base. Screw the special bolt in further to depress the intake and exhaust valve springs and remove the valve cotters. Unscrew the special bolt and remove the valve spring tools. Remove the valve rotators and the intake and exhaust valve springs. Check the markings on the intake exhaust valve heads and draw out the valves toward the combustion chamber. Arrange the removed parts and check for damage, corrosion, and contact marks. After removing the above valves, check for carbon adhesion on combustion surfaces and in the intake and exhaust ports. After removing any carbon from the combustion surface and the intake and exhaust ports, carefully clean them and perform a color check for cracks. The combustion surface and the ports near the combustion surface are exposed to high temperatures and high pressure. Check them particularly carefully. Properly perform a color check in accordance with the work instruction manual. When wiping up any liquid penetrant, do not spray it directly with cleaning solution. Check for corrosion and gas leakage on the intake and exhaust ports and the sealing surfaces. The stem diameter of the intake and exhaust valves is measured at 3 different points with the micrometer. Using the calipers, measure the thickness of the valve seat height. Take the measurements according to the chart. Measure the intake and exhaust valves and the valve guides. Record those measurements. Perform the facing up of the intake and exhaust valves properly based on the work instruction manual. Conduct a blue lead check of the seat surface conditions after finishing the facing up. Measure the valve head thicknesses and the valve seat dimensions with calipers again, and confirm that the measured valves do not exceed the usage limits. Each of the stemmed seals is used exclusively for either the intake or exhaust side. Colored rubber seals are used to indicate the difference, gray signifying the intake side, green signifying the exhaust side. Before reinserting each valve, check its identification mark, either I, intake, or E, exhaust. On the combustion side of the cylinder head, replace each valve in its original position according to the identification mark engraved on the valve head before disassembly. To prevent incorrect reassembly, the stem diameters on the intake and exhaust sides are different. Insert each valve from the combustion chamber side. If the inner lip of the stem seal is damaged, when the valve is inserted, it will contaminate the valve and increase lubrication oil consumption. Apply lubricating oil to the valve stem and insert the valve slowly. Make sure there are no scratches, debris, or any signs of damage or corrosion on the valve spring surfaces, and then fit the valve springs. After checking the valve rotators, fit the valve rotators onto the cylinder head. Reassemble the valves using the valve spring tools and reversing the disassembly procedure. Fit the base to the stud bolt for the retaining nozzle holder on the top surface of the cylinder head. Fit the plate onto the valve rotator body and screw the special bolt into the base. Pressing down the valve spring, remove the valve cotters. remove the valve spring tools. After reassembly, check that the cutters are completely sound. Tap the upper parts of the intake and exhaust valves with a plastic hammer and check for anti-clockwise rotation of the valve rotator. Apply grease to the O-ring of the starting valve body. Check the gasket of the starting valve seat and install the starting valve. Attach the starting valve cover and tighten with the prescribed torque. Reassembly of the cylinder head is done in the reverse sequence of its dismantling. Attach the cylinder head lifting tool to the cylinder head and elevate it. Clean the cylinder head seals, the cylinder liner, and the engine frame. Replace the cylinder head gasket and the cylinder liner O-ring with new ones. Attach the 1 and 2 cylinder head gaskets. Fit the gasket 2 into the starting air connecting pipe on the engine frame, mounted so that the gap between the cylinder head bolt is kept even. Make sure there is no foreign matter in the cylinder before reattaching the cylinder head. After lifting the cylinder head, pay attention to the threads on the cylinder head bolts to prevent them from being damaged. Lower the cylinder head slowly. Make sure that the SA connecting pipe on the engine frame and the cylinder liner collar are fit securely within the cylinder head before mounting. Insert the exhaust pipe gasket between the cylinder head and exhaust pipe. Apply an anti-seizure agent to the exhaust pipe bolts and tighten the exhaust pipe temporarily. Remove the cylinder head hangers. Carefully clean the threaded portions of the cylinder head bolts, the threaded portions and the seat surface of the cylinder head bolt tightening nuts, and the contact surfaces of the cylinder head with the tightening nuts. Check for dirt and foreign matter. When attaching the cylinder head tightening nuts, do not confuse the upper and lower surfaces. Screw in each tightening nut by hand until it contacts the surface. Mark the nuts and seating surface. Attach the hydraulic jack with the same procedures used for disassembly. Attach the high-pressure hoses. Raise the oil pressure with the hydraulic pump and tighten the nut. Tighten the nuts firmly by tapping the tool handle with a hammer. Slowly open the release valve of the hydraulic pump to gradually decrease the oil pressure to 0. After increasing the oil pressure again to the specified value, tap the jack handle with a hammer with the same force as that applied in the above step to retighten the circular nut and make sure it does not turn any further. Remove the high-pressure hoses and jacks. Check the nut marking positions after tightening. Fit the rubber cap on each of the threaded portions of the bolt. Turn the flywheel to the top combustion position. Mount the valve holding T. Adjust its horizontal level using a dial gauge or your sense of touch. After finishing the adjustment, tighten the lock nut completely. Then insert the push rod. Clean the bottom of the rocker arm and mount the rocker arm shaft on the cylinder head. Then apply lubricant to the threaded portions and the bearing surface of the rocker arm shaft holder tightening nut. Finally, tighten the nut to the specified torque. Loosen the rocker arm adjustment screw. Adjust the rocker arm gap with the thickness gauge and then tighten the lock nut completely. Mount the indicator valve. Tighten the exhaust manifold tightening bolts. Mount the thermometer. Mount the cooling water outlet main pipe and tighten with mounting bolts. Replace all the gaskets of each pipe with new ones. Tighten the starting valve piping. Attach the cylinder head cover.